Okay, so my background, I do design thinking. I do user research, user interaction, and design thinking, user-centered design. Now, of course, you're like, wait a second. Why is a user experience person talking about self-service web analytics? And I will explain all of this. I'm here to convince you that the centrality of users in the experience of self-service analytics is very crucial. And as I said, I'll ask you a couple of questions as we go. First of all, you've heard the distinction between left brain and right brain. Okay, so we have here data scientists, right? How many of you would say are left brain people? Oh, I don't have anyone who is a left brain. Okay, how about right brain people? How many of you would say that you actually cross and you're like a whole brain person? Great. These are the people I need. These are the people we all need when we talk about self-service analytics. Because what we'll be talking here about is using quantitative data to actually tell a story. And I'm sure you heard some of the presentations today. And so some of our technologies, some of our solutions, they will empower you to deliver a message and deliver a story, rather than just giving numbers. Because people don't remember the numbers. I mean, I love numbers, but people remember the stories. So I have one last question before we move on, and then you ask all the questions. So how many, and if you've heard that one, and you're like, okay, why? How many of you think that there are more grains of sand on Earth than stars? So are there more sand or more stars in the sky? What do you think, sir? Sand. Okay, he thinks sand. How many are with him on sand? Okay. How many of you think that there are more stars in the sky? Okay, fun, and I met a lovely lady at lunch. So tell me why you think there are more stars. Okay. Actually, statistically, and I checked that before I walked on stage, there are 10 times more stars than there's grain on Earth. Why is this important? Because there's one star, we talk about the North Star, and even though there are more stars in the sky than there's grain on Earth, people can use the North Star and they can find their way. I want you to remember from here that if you make the person who you're creating the analytics, or the person whom you're empowering to do self-service, if you make this person your North Star, you will be successful. Okay, whoops. I went back. This was a great session. I love these guys. I do love them. Okay. What I'll be talking about is why analytics matters, a little bit about the life cycle, what in the world is self-service analytics, why does it matter in 2017, and then the rise of this concept of the citizen data scientist. Okay? So why analytics matters? I'm going to ask you, do you agree with this? Do you agree the three things I have on the board is that analytics, and especially self-service analytics, empowers decision makers with timely insights. Because getting the right information at the right time to the right people, whether it's IRS, whether it's Census Bureau, whether it's some decision that I need to make, this is what really matters. What's happening is, you have this notion of agility, confidence, and performance. And agility is empowering your users with analytics so that can act quickly and independently. The whole notion of self-service. I don't need to depend on anybody else. It's very agile. I can act quickly and independently. And then, of course, confidence ensures that users various data sources without compromising governance, of course. We have to be very careful with this, especially in some of the most sensitive fields where access to the information can be restricted, and then drive smarter business decisions to improve results. Would you agree? I mean, you're obviously here. You're obviously spending a whole day with us. Would you agree that analytics really matter, especially in 2018? 17. How many of you work with analytics? How many of you are analytics people? All day long? Everyone? How about the ones that didn't raise your hands? What do you do? Other important things? Okay. So, I told you I was a user researcher. And I told you that I do design thinking. So how does this matter? What matters here is that we are looking at an analytical life cycle through the lens of the users. So you have the steps of the life cycle. You have data access, data preparation, analysis, validation, collaboration, and reporting. So you have this cycle that is not a one-way cycle, it's a continuous iterative process. And throughout it, if we want to make self-service successful, we have to understand who the people are, and we have to understand what they need. What I'm saying here is that even the simplest, the most simple life cycle that you see has 4 identified personas. By persona, I mean a specific type of user with specific demographic characteristics. Demographics can be things like age, gender, everything we know about this user. And we talk about this demographic, we talk about technographic. So the person in IT might be more technically savvy. The person in IT might be a programmer or really more involved with all of that. Now, the data scientists might have different requirements. So we look at all of that from a user perspective. It's like, who are those people? What they need today? What are their priorities? How would they approach analytics? And what is their as-is scenario, like how things are today? And what is their new world, their to-be scenario? Like, for example, in a lot of organizations, the business users, these people here, might not be even empowered to do anything with analytics. They might have to go through the data scientists. So what we're saying here is that there's a life cycle of analytics, and there are different people who get involved. Have I missed a type of user or a type of persona? Do you want to add some kind of a person? I'm actually very curious if people have additional people to add. In your organizations, does this match, or do you have different, or is it more a variant of the same? Yeah, go ahead. That's a good one. So, in which step of the process would this person fit, the consultant who translates all of that? Okay, so right at reporting, okay. And why do you need that translation? Tell me more about this. I mean, I agree with you. So that role is because it's too complex, or? Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So you need that translation, and imagine how powerful it is if you allow the stakeholder to run his or her analytics when they work with this. Any other roles that anyone wants to add to this life cycle? Okay. So the other thing here, this looks way too clean. This looks like, okay, one person, the other person, we are running the Olympics, I'm passing something. No, doesn't work like that. This is rarely a straightforward process. What you see here is you have a myriad of connections between everyone, and all of these people, they interact, and sometimes these interactions are very happy. Sometimes there's a lot of pain points and challenges. There are delays, there are frustrations, and this is where the opportunity of self-service analytics and the frameworks and the technologies and the solutions behind it is to untangle a messy process and to make it useful. And actually, as I was putting this slide together, it looked more like it was way, way, way more complicated, but that's a little more straightforward. So what happens then? Steps in self-service analytics, which empowers domain experts in your organizations to make better decisions by autonomously harnessing the power of data. So you give autonomy to the domain experts. What is a domain expert? What is a domain expert in any of your organizations? So for example, I've done a lot of work with International Monetary Fund and Fannie Mae. So a lot of their people deal with financial models. Well, actually, a lot of their people are statisticians, but let's say a domain expert can be a medical doctor. It can be somebody else than the data scientist per se. And I'm looking for a couple of good examples. Who wants to share some domain experts within your companies? Anybody from? And no, I'm not going to pick on the census people because all your domain experts are actually, so you have the domain experts who now can do self-service analytics. Actually, show of hands, how many of your organizations already have self-service analytics? Oh, yes, you don't. Just one. Which company are you with, sir?
United States Postal Service.
Cool. Are you happy with how it works? Yourself,
It's a challenge.
Okay. Why is it a challenge? Can you elaborate? Why is it a challenge?
Where do I begin?
Okay, I'm not paying him money. He's just too good.
One of the challenges is that our traditional business model involves non-self-service. So we're challenging that by saying we have, business people who have analytic skills who need to get their hands on the data in sort of a deep and intimate way. And that's not always possible within a traditional IT structure.
Absolutely, and of course everything is evolving. The world around us is evolving, and some of those traditional structures are. And what I can say is that, especially in 2017, everything is changing and it's moving to, people will move, even if you're not here. So next year when you come back to the IBM conference, you would be like, oh yeah, we have self-service analytics. And here's what self-service analytics allows you to do. It moves it from the domain of the few, so it's no longer kind of like, if you think of IT as kind of like the stronghold, or however you want to see it, and now it's being distributed, and it's being distributed to many more people, and it allows, I like this, it expands your organization's collective intelligence. And what that means, when we do design thinking, we talk about diverse teams. So what happens is when you have people with different perspectives, different context, you have much better results. So these movements towards understanding the life cycle, the analytics life cycle, and self-service, they're giving a rise to something called the citizen data scientist. Gartner Consulting has been talking about this for the last few years, and they are one of the reasons the citizen data scientist is evolving is because there's a need. There are not enough people to fill all the roles that need to the data scientist roles, and more people need access to information. So we're talking about this notion of the rise of the citizen data scientist. And we'll show you a little video right now.
I don't work in IT, but my job still requires me to understand, customize, and utilize data through analytics. For instance, just today, I had to give a last-minute presentation to provide solutions for our poor sales performance last quarter. But luckily, I can use IBM Cognos Analytics to help me understand and manage our business. Some of my colleagues are still compiling spreadsheets, and some use tools that make things look pretty but aren't as easy as I need. Plus, it can leave me questioning the accuracy of the data. Cognos Analytics uses built-in intelligence. It knows what I'm looking for as soon as I start typing in keywords, and then it helps me get right to work to create the content I need quickly. It's managed self-service done in a cognitive way. I can create those same brilliant data visualizations as some of my colleagues, but I can be confident that my presentation is grounded in our corporately supported data and analytics system. I'm not an expert in business intelligence or data science, but my job requires that I sometimes have to act like one. Whether I'm making a simple report or something more complex, Cognos Analytics lets me do that with confidence.
So the reason we looked at that video was to see the persona, to see the user. So we had this user who, the first thing she says is, I'm not in IT, yet I need access to this data. And through this particular technology, she is empowered to get the information, to get the information she needs and to deliver the message she needs. I have another quote from Gartner here. BI and analytics platform markets multi-year shift from IT-led enterprises to business-led self-service analytics has passed the tipping point. Now, we can debate this. Do people in your enterprises, it seems like it hasn't quite occurred yet. Do you think it has occurred that now analytics are more business-led than IT-based, or do you think you're still moving on that spectrum? And I'll pick on phone again. You think the former? Okay. So how many of you are still in IT-led analytics world? No? Yes, which company you guys with? Okay, okay, okay. Which part of the government?
The GAO.
Okay, okay. And are you planning to move towards self-service analytics?
We're just trying to learn within our own building operations and trying to learn how to use analytics with our different groups. So we're still working on getting there, on learning and trying to apply the different forms of analytics. So we're still a ways.
Absolutely. And I hope you're seeing everyone here. I hope you're seeing all the wonderful demos and you're talking to all my colleagues who can give you a lot of information about how IBM can further assist with that. Anyone who feels that they're in an organization where they have they're in a government agency or an organization where they have transitioned to business-led self-service? I know we already heard from you, but anyone else at least moving in that direction? Interesting. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the government's generally in where he said, where we're just trying to figure out the analytics in the first place. And the thing that I see as an analyst, as a school-trained ORSA, is that video actually frightens me because you've given the incredibly powerful tools to someone who doesn't understand what they're even looking at.
And that's a good point. And you know what fear does? Fear drives success. Let's hear from this gentleman, and I want to talk more about this for a second.
We've offered some training on the self-service with Cognos, and I don't think anybody's using it. But we've offered it. I don't think people are comfortable doing their own analytics unless they have the confidence that they're going to say the right thing and do it the right way. In the government, we don't want to make mistakes.
No one wants to make mistakes, trust me. Yeah, sir, over there. And if we can get another mic, or do we have a mic? Yeah,
Sorry, I guess my only question is, I'm rather new to government. Is there a traditional divide between the subject matter experts for the organization and the analysts who are actually managing the data? Because in many organizations, other than the one that I currently work with, that role is often combined. There is a subject matter who does have analytics, both grasp and hands-on and tools. And I'm just curious whether that's an issue that's being addressed in the greater government world.
Does anyone want to comment on this? And it's great that we're having this conversation, that people and I love to hear this fact that people are saying, hey, this even scares us because it's shifting and we want to make sure that it's accurate and people can get what they need. So that's, so he was asking, ask again, is there a division between?
Well, my observation is that I think there might be in some organizations, and it's moving away from that, or there's change afoot, and at least in some organizations, and I'm wondering if others here are seeing that. Because I think it's going to drive what you're talking about in terms of self-service.
Absolutely.
And the demand for that.
And we're trying to be provocative and spark ideas and be, so people are like, okay, it's 3 o'clock. We've been here all day. Okay, if no one wants to share, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very systems-based. Lots of times we have very unique systems, not really off-the-shelf anything. Yeah, our systems are unique. They're not off the shelf. So you're not going to have, you hire somebody one day, the next day they're doing a lot of analytics. It's very much with the IT departments that are building things and maintaining things. They're the ones who have access to it for most of the interesting data.
Absolutely, and let me say something here. With what I'm talking, yes, I started in IT, shifting to business, yet you can see self-service within the IT as well. You can give better tools and more empowered tools and make their job better and more effective. I just have a couple more slides, and we'll take more questions. So if you look at that cat, and I'm not quite sure if it's a jaguar or something else, when we talk about this whole notion of self-service analytics as an idea, if you would like, or as a next step, or as a framework, we're talking about creating a more nimble, responsive organization, and you delivering those capabilities that allow you to personalize the content, just over here, personalize to meet unique needs of the individuals, and really bring the data at people's fingertips. Now, this whole notion of, I have been talking about self-service in the definition of how people within the organization run reports and interact with data. Now, there's another view of what self-service in government analytics is, and it's actually letting the citizens run analytics. Now, I'm going to ask you for that view. How many of you provide access to citizens to run analytics with your data? Anyone? You're shaking, you're confirming? What agency?
I retired from Treasury 13 years ago, and as a citizen, I'm very interested in being able to do self-service, whether it's Social Security, IRS, etc. When I was in government 13 years ago, I saw that there was a lot of resistance to internal self-service that you've been referring to, but a lot of interest in making data available to citizens to make people's jobs easier. And that's where I see the great benefit to self-service is more the external customer than the internal customer, because the culture hasn't yet accepted internally to be able to give people the ability to do their own self-service. There's still a lot of resistance internally, but externally, that is a huge innovation that is only going to grow, that citizens want more and more self-service so they don't have to interact.
Absolutely, and especially when we're talking about the different, I'm sure, the different generations, and with the millennials coming in the workforce, and people becoming technically more tech savvy, and it's not really necessarily correlated with age per se. My father-in-law is in his 80s, yet he runs all sorts of, he wants data, he runs analytics as a citizen. I wanted to see, is anyone here from Census? I'm sorry, you had a point, sir?
Yeah, I'm not from government, I'm from private sector. My name is Dinkar, I'm from a company called Senrio Technologies. So we have helped several municipalities and local school districts actually do self-service analytics. For example, a good use case is to put the budget, different various reports on the budget of the agency, for self-service. The biggest challenge that we have seen is actually that gentleman who just spoke before has said is about data sharing and also data governance, right? I mean, it's not just about putting the data out for analytics, but also it's important what data is being put in, because otherwise the agencies or departments would face a lot of nuisance in terms of people running reports and try to understand nonsensical data. So I think
absolutely, and I'm sure everyone here who is from government takes big pride in the accuracy and the completeness of your data. So absolutely, good point. Yeah. The reason I wanted to see if there's anyone from Census, because the Census Bureau is actually doing some interesting innovations in the idea of providing access to the data. So for example, and they're making it very, very user-centric. Because when you think of, would the normal off-the-street person go to Census and find information? They have some interesting case studies. Let's say you have, or user personas, you have a family of young bakers who want to open a bakery in Maryland, for example. And they can interact with the census data to find out, is there a competition? Like, how many bakeries are already there? And they want to do like little treats for children. So how many families with children are in particular counties? And through this chatbot with Census, what they can do is they can see, hey, if I go to this county, Montgomery, or if I go to this other one, I can be more successful. And you had a point. Go ahead.
I was just going back to
we're talking about self-service and the accuracy of data.
I got caught up.
That's the whole session, self-service.
Yeah, self-service. I work for ICE. A lot of people probably haven't heard of that organization these days. But 2 points on self-service. We actually have created self-service when it comes to human resource. Anything that we want to do as employees, we could be able to go in and fill out forms or whatever. On the external side, we just launched a platform called Voice, which is for victims of human trafficking and their families as well. So we have really been just recently successful on the end user and in-house application of self-service.
Wonderful. And have your results been are you very proud of your results, happy with the results?
No, internally we are not, and the new voice for victims outside of the agency is just a little bit, maybe 6 weeks or so. So we haven't really got enough data there to say whether it's successful or not. But in-house, we can always use improvements, but we're not happy with what we have.
So maybe IBM can come here and help you further. Maybe it's an opportunity to work together. The couple of more points I wanted to do is IBM Watson. You've heard a lot of my coworkers talk about this. It really takes self-service analytics into a whole new, different level. And I'm not going to do PowerPoint karaoke. This is like PowerPoint karaoke is when you read word per word per word. I'm not going to do that. I just wanted to highlight this one, the one that says natural language dialogue. It allows you to use a different way of phrasing, and you don't have to, so you can do that. And since I've been given the sign, I just wanted to see if you have any questions. Thank you. Questions? I know we've been talking the whole session, so. Okay, thank you.